Travel isn't just about destinations, it's about the people you meet, the cultures you immerse yourself in, the stories you carry home. I'm Relebogile Mabocha, and on my travel feature, I take you on a journey beyond the guidebook. Each week, I connect with fellow travelers, insiders, and storytellers to bring you the heart of every place. Whether it's a hidden gem right here in South Africa or a dream destination abroad. Join me as we travel through conversations, memories, and inspiration. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Now, though, we are going to step away into the world of travel and tourism. And today I want to talk to an international travel group which has recently released some very interesting research findings about some of the factors influencing travel in 2025 and some of the new trends that are being noticed. These include the concepts of heritage holidays and of Bravecations. And if you don't know really what either of those is, stand by because we'll explain in a moment. Also, things that are being noticed, though, the use of artificial intelligence to assist with holiday planning. I don't think that's going to come as a surprise to anybody. But let's discuss this further with someone who knows a lot more about this research than I do. A pleasure to welcome on the line with us this afternoon Dorcas Dlamini Mbele, who is Commercial Director for Marriott International in its Sub-Saharan Africa region. Dorcas, lovely to have you with us today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Pippa.
It's a pleasure.
And great to be with you this afternoon.
Thank you. We're talking here about findings from your recent Ticket to Travel report. Before we look at the details, won't you just briefly tell us a bit more about this research?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. So, we conducted this research last year in September with our partner Malta. And in fact, we actually ran the research across 10 of our markets throughout EMEA, and South Africa was one of those.
Okay.
And in South Africa, we actually surveyed more than 2,000 people across different, walks of life, age groups, income levels, and genders. And really our research into the travel plans and preferences and aspirations really revealed this vibrant picture of how people want to travel, where they want to go, when they want to travel, and with whom they want to travel with.
Lots of interesting stuff to look at there, Dorcas. With whom they want to travel, let's just quickly talk about that before we dive into some of the reasons for the travel. Are you finding that people are traveling more outside of the traditional family holiday?
Yeah, so there are people who want to travel outside of the family holiday, but majority of the research actually reflected that majority of South Africans want to travel with their families. They are very family-centric, and as you can imagine, South Africans, that could stretch as far as the brand is concerned, but a majority of South Africans want to travel with their partners and their families and their extended families throughout South Africa and also new destinations.
Okay. Obviously, travel budgets being a big factor, Dorcas, as you've mentioned, the rand not stretching terribly far against major international travel currencies. And I would imagine the demand for value for money must be a key driver at the moment.
Yeah, the research revealed that South Africans are actually quite savvy with their money. In fact, we call this trend that came out really clearly as savvy spenders in South Africa. Mm-hmm. So they're making use of their rand by actually looking at non-peak seasons when they want to travel. So gone are the days that they're only traveling on peak seasons, but they're looking at shoulder periods in order for them to be able to make use of all stretch their rand. Mm-hmm. But also what South Africans are looking at, they're looking at things like, cyber sales during Black Friday, for example. So they're taking advantage of any of the opportunities to get new special offers that are available for them to be able to spend more time with their families and experience this with their extended families.
I didn't know I was on trend, Dorcas, but I'm one of those who did exactly that, who watched and waited and watched and paced and looked at the costings on the accommodation I had in sight for a trip I'm taking later this year. And sure enough, during November, during the Black Friday sales, bang, up came the 30% discount I was hoping for, and I jumped on it. So for once in my life, I was actually on trend without even intending to be.
That's
but
fantastic.
actually, you know what? While the other way in which I've been somewhat on trend is that the trip I'm taking is partly what you would categorize as a heritage holiday, because I'm going to explore a destination linked to my late grandfather, because I grew up listening to his stories of it. Dorcas, this is one of the interesting things coming out of your report, that a lot of people are starting to take that kind of trip, that they go to a destination not just because it's got fun sights to see, but because they want to explore part of their heritage. Tell us more.
Yeah, this is really came out really one of the strongest trends, especially amongst the young people who are seeking to understand their identity better and heritage, like you've just said, with regards to your trip that's coming up. Yeah. So what we're finding is that young people, majority between the ages of 18 and 24, are looking to actually explore where their ancestors come from. They want to know how their way of living in the olden days, and it's so important to inform where they're going in future. So we're seeing more of this actually as a rise.
Okay, so particularly in younger travelers, you said, but I'm going to say I certainly don't fall into anybody's category of a younger traveler anymore. And I'm aware of lots of our listeners who've done this kind of trip, Dorcas, retracing, historically the boat journey that brought their family out as immigrants, for example. I heard from a listener earlier this year who's actually sent me a book he wrote about following in his father's wartime footsteps. And that's a story we'll share with our audience later on. There is really fascinating self-discovery to be found in following somebody else's path, I guess, is what is trending. And then let's talk about the rise of the Bravecation. Dorcas, what's a Bravecation? How brave do you need to be, and what are you going to be doing on that one?
Well, South Africans, I think, as we are people with adventurous spirits, right? And we are always willing to embrace new experiences. And it's no different when people are going on holidays as South Africans. We're looking for cultural heritage experiences, but we also want to try new things. What came out in this research was some of the top 3 things where South Africans want to try really extreme adventures, like climb up a mountain or go bungee jumping, but they also want to try out unusual foods. We obviously have a beautiful culinary experience and offering in South Africa, but when South Africans want to travel, they want to try something that they otherwise wouldn't try at home. They are very brave, and I think this is quite telling of South Africans, because we've got a very strong sense of our identity and pride, and we want to do this and show this and reflect this during our holidays as well.
Okay, well, I'll go for the unusual foods over the bungee jumping if you don't mind, but point taken. Dorcas, I mentioned briefly in the introduction that the rise of the use of AI in travel planning was, I think, to be expected. As a matter of interest, is it mainly younger travelers who are embracing that, or are you seeing all age groups starting to utilize AI more in this space?
Yeah, we're seeing all age groups using AI in order for them to use AI as a planning tool, right? But nearly half of South Africans are actually using it to not only plan, but they want to research their holiday. They want to find inspiration. They want to use it to be able to, great ways of making their holidays more efficient based on location, efficiently from a spend perspective. And then from a locations perspective as well. So AI is a big thing, but definitely across all ages.
And then finally, very quickly before we must say goodbye, Dorcas, I'm also not surprised to see that we are becoming slightly more savvy travellers in terms of the environmental footprint of our travel. For us in South Africa, it is unfortunately a long plane trip to many overseas destinations, certainly. Yeah. How are travellers sort of compensating for that, or what are they looking at to try and feel a bit better about the decisions that they make in terms of the sort of footprint of their travel?
Yes, sustainability is no longer a buzzword anymore. I think our travelers in South Africa are very conscious. And what we found through this research is actually quite encouraging, is that 80% say that they look at the environmental impact of their travel plans, whether if they're taking a flight or they're driving. But also the same amount, about 80%, also said that they want to check their sustainability of the accommodation that they're going to be staying at ahead of them actually planning their holiday. And quite frankly, I mentioned earlier on that we did this research across 10 markets, and South Africa came up as the highest with about 64% of our travelers actually make an effort to check if their locations or their travel plans are going to support the sustainability, whereas the rest of the EMEA was sitting at 30%. So I think South Africans are well on their way to really support all the different goals that we've got from a sustainability perspective. So good on South Africans.
Indeed, good on them and good on us. Thank you so much for those insights. Dorcas Dlamini Mbele speaking to us there, Marriott International's Commercial Director for the Sub-Saharan Africa region.